And the main person I've been working on this problem with is a person by the name of Carol Boucher, who is a nutritional epidemiologist, and she's at the University of Hawaii Cancer Center. And so the project, our system is entitled Technology Assisted Dietary Assessment System. And if you go to www.tadaproject.org, you can learn everything you need to know about it. And again, I want to emphasize, we've been doing food image analysis and dietary assessment using mobile devices, in particular mobile phones, for almost 9 years. And I'm just going to give you a quick overview of what we've done. You can go to the website to learn a lot more. So I'm going to go through a lot of stuff relatively quickly. So I do want to acknowledge the team, and in particular Carol. And one of the things, there's a little bit of a misconception I always want to straighten out, and that is my friends in the sort of the computer vision image processing area always refer to this as my project. It's really not my project. It's Carol's project, because Carol came to me almost 9.5 years ago and said, I want to measure dietary assessment, and I think I want to be able to do it with images. And I said, why do you want to do that? She goes, I want to do that. I said, okay, so we wrote lots and lots of proposals. I also acknowledge the almost $4 million we've received over a 9-year period from the National Institutes of Health, and also something called the CTSI, which is another NIH program for all of Indiana, and also the Purdue Research Foundation. And then these are all of the former graduate students that have worked on the project, okay? So what is it? So first thing you need to know is measuring accurate dietary assessment is considered to be an open research problem, okay? Nobody really knows how to do it. I'm not saying we know how to do it. I'm just going to tell you what we've done, okay? And what we've done is this. It's a complete end-to-end mobile telephone, mobile device dietary assessment system, okay? It runs, there's a client-type device, so it runs on both iOS, iPhones, iPads, iPod Touches, and it runs on Android devices. It allows you to take pictures of your food, and then we acquire a bunch of other metadata like geolocation, date, time, place, the angle of the camera, any type of metadata we can take, even some stuff from the accelerometers. All of that is sent to a central server. We can even collect barcode information if the food is packaged and there's a barcode. Sent to a central server for analysis. There's lots and lots of stuff that goes on back there, and I'll show you a little example of that. And then based on that analysis, we can then actually calculate the calorie content and nutrition information that's in the food. We can also ask the end user, and I'll say a little bit more on this, to provide some feedback information to help us train the classification system. And we can then provide the information to healthcare professionals and also end users. Now, I should point out to you, our main emphasis on this project is not a cutesy application you put on your phone and you use to tell you whether or not you should eat the next pizza or not. We're really interested in healthcare, in providing accurate information to nutritionists, your physicians, and things like that. So most of our studies do not return this information to the user. How the user gets access to this information is through their healthcare provider, which I guess sort of violates Ramesh's rule, but we have a new study in Australia. We're going to be able to, closing this loop is simple, and we've already got some studies that are about to start up that we're doing that. Okay, just to give you an idea of the complexity, we spent a lot of time designing the mobile interface, okay? So we can give you the app, and you can start using it with almost no instruction in about 15 minutes, okay? Let me just give you the idea, those of you who know anything about writing code, the complexity of what we've done so far. iOS device, Android device, it's about 70,000 lines of code, okay? The back-end server, okay, is about 325,000 lines of code, okay? So we're doing a lot of very complicated stuff here, all right? Other things, everything's encrypted, back-end databases, I'll say a little bit more about that when we get there. It's a complete end-to-end system, all right? Up to this point, we've done 15 user studies that it consisted of more than 900 participants. That's in free living and also controlled environment. And we've acquired more than 70,000 images, food images. Now, these images were taken in real eating conditions and also in some test conditions where we actually brought people in and we actually controlled what they ate. The other thing I want to emphasize is our method has been peer-reviewed in the nutrition literature. Not just some cutesy computer vision journal where most of the reviewers don't know a damn thing about nutrition, right? But in nutrition literature, and we've also done controlled studies where we fed people doubly labeled water. I know the lady from Nestle, you probably know about doubly labeled water, right? So doubly labeled water is Carol always gets upset when I say this, but it's like a quasi-radioactive thing. Water, we have you drink and then we collect urine. Now, my students and I don't do this, her students do this. And we can actually then measure how much nutrients you have. So I want to emphasize again, yeah, you're going to tell me about food, calorie, or some other stupid damn app you've downloaded on the net. None of those things have been peer-reviewed, okay? The other thing I should tell you is every app on that for iPhone and Android is publicly available that does food or any type of dietary stuff. We have it in my lab and we've evaluated it. Every single one, okay? And we're writing a review paper on it. Okay, we published more than 30 conference papers, 18 journal papers, and you can get detailed information. This is since 2008. So it's a relatively complex end-to-end system. We've looked at a lot of different things, and we can tell you, what's good and what's bad. Here's an overview of some of our studies. We've had children as young as 3 use our app, and we've had adults older than 66 use our app, okay? So we spent a lot of time, again, in the user interface design. Here's an example of some people actually using it in one of our controlled studies. We've actually done controlled studies where we have brought teenagers, actually teenage girls, and we actually control everything that they eat over like a 1-week period, okay? They actually stay at the university, and we have fun little things they do and stuff like that. So we've done a lot of controlled studies. We've done a lot of open studies. Here's an example of how a 9-year-old was using our app. So we have the capability of taking a before picture and an after picture. Now yesterday, somebody was asking about food portion size. Well, food portion size means I'm measuring something. So anytime you measure something, you have to ask the question, measuring it against what, right? In other words, you always measure something relative to a context. In one context is maybe you measure it according to a meter, which is a context. What we do is we have people use this thing called a fiducial marker. And what it is, it's a color-calibrated square that allows us to essentially, every time we take a picture, calibrate the camera for both position, in other words, length, and color. Now, let me ask you guys a question. And actually, can you turn that off for a second? The reason why I didn't want that recorded is I know that because of the way I know that I can't tell you why I know it. Okay. All right. So you need to have this thing about the color information. Now, right away, you're going to say, oh, wait a minute. I don't want to use this thing. You can't tell me people are using this. We have tons of things we've published that said people have no trouble using this fiducial marker. Okay? And we need a reference, otherwise I can't measure food portion size. Okay, now I could maybe try to use plates, but not everybody has the same size plate. And we are looking at doing other things other than this. And we've spent a lot of time on this, and I actually have one here if you want to see what it looks like. This is what the iPhone app looks like. We spent a lot of time designing a user interface. We did storyboards, like what they do with movies, okay, on designing the user interface. The interface even tells you when you should take the picture. In other words, it goes from red into green. It also checks whether or not the picture is blurred. It checks for the presence of the fiducial marker. Now, if the image is blurred, the fiducial marker is present, it will say, well, they're not here, and we got a problem, it's blurred. Do you want to take the picture over again? You can say no. You can say, to hell with it, take this picture, okay? But you can also, it will ask you to take the picture over again. Lots of really neat back-end stuff my graduate students put in here. We can also have a process we can turn on. A lot of these features we can turn on and turn off, where we can send the, maybe I'm going to have to go back too far. We can send some of our initial estimates of what the food label is and what the segmentation mask is, and we can ask the person to confirm that. And that helps us do some with our machine learning. okay? You can either turn that on or turn it off, and we've done all kinds of studies about having people not review it instantaneously, but again, review it maybe in the evening or the next day. So we have lots and lots of studies where we've done that. Okay. This is also part of, I'll skip this. So one of the things I'll show you right now is just some of the food image analysis we've done. Now we started off doing what people would call classical techniques, and I guess the term now is we use hand-tuned features, handcrafted features, but we also are doing deep learning. This is one of our initial systems we use for doing classification. It uses a combination of local features and global features. I was going to go through this real quick, and then I'll show you some stuff on the portion size estimate, and I'll show you some accuracy stuff. Again, this is just how we do that. We do a combination. You know, if we're going to, it's not just labeling that that's an apple. We need to also segment it so we can then do portion size estimation. So here's an example of one of our techniques. We do a combination of a bunch of different segmentation techniques, and we aggregate the information together in the classification system. So this is one of our test images. Again, to show you this is what the segmentation mask looks like. We use multi-scale normalized cuts. We also have done some stuff using local variation classification system. Again, we take lots of different classification systems. We're doing this all on the back-end server. We're not doing this analysis on the mobile device, okay? And we also collect all the information in the back-end server, and we could store it. You could put a lot of this other personalized information you were talking about in Ramesh's schema would fit into this very easily, okay? You know, our database is XML, I mean, it's a SQL database, so you could suck things out of it very easily. It would match perfectly into your schema. Okay, you know, we have to worry about things like over-segmentation and under-segmentation. This is a free living meal where somebody actually took their images. I guess they were eating some sort of lasagna type thing with some sort of bread, and they had beverage there. We've also done some stuff, again, for those of you that do image analysis, we've done some stuff using superpixels, again, with a combination of the normalized cut. Here's what our hierarchical segmentation then looks like for these particular things. And yeah, you may say, well, I mean, things, food, touch, and stuff like that. We can do that problem also. So it's not, we're not asking everybody to rearrange their food like when you're a kid. Remember when you were a kid when you had to separate everything because you were afraid if it ran together. If it ran together and you ate the part that ran together, you would die or something like that. Remember that? So. And then the features we use a lot of color features, texture features. Again, this is sort of the existing sort of production system, although we are part of the production system also has deep learning features in it now. So we looked, you know, foods show a lot of variation of color. There's also, you know, color is important, but also color can sometimes cause you problems. And color's not enough, because in some cases with color, you know, you can't tell the difference, let's say, necessarily between maybe orange juice and peach juice or things like that. You can even get into trouble with, oh, here's an interesting thing. How about milk? What color is milk? Huh? Huh? It's white. You think it's white. Okay, so in Switzerland here, do you have 1% milk? What do you have? What's the lowest fat content milk you have? Okay, skim milk's okay. All right, if you drink skim milk, next time you drink skim milk, look at it very closely, okay? Because it's red. Look at it very closely. You'll see that it's red, okay? It is. However, it's not red enough for me to use it. Okay, sorry about that. So, but it is red. Okay, here's some examples. You can get confounding things. There's scrambled eggs. Here's canned pears and spaghetti. So in some cases, you know, yellow is not enough. You're going to need other features to be able to do this. Okay, so again, we've done a lot of stuff with very complicated texture features, some Gabor-based features, some entropy-based features, some gradient-oriented. Again, I can't go. I don't have enough time. This is in about 5 of my students' PhD dissertations. You can go read those things. They're available on our website. And we have pointers to our publications. So you have to go through, I don't have time to do all of this. But, you know, this is, again, you're looking at the end of about 8 years worth of work. These are the features that are used. Those of you who have, you know, work in image processing, computer vision, understand what these are. They're both a combination of local and global features. We also do on the classifiers, we spent a lot of time looking at something. We wanted something also that was reasonably fast. So we did things like nearest neighbor, plus support vector machine. And then towards the end, we even did things like vocabulary trees on the classification system. Here's an example of what a vocabulary tree looks like. It's another way of doing classification for the food. Okay, so let me just show you a classification experiment. So this is this was a test sequence we did on our free living study with Carol. It was 1,453 images. They were taken by 45 participants, and they had roughly 20 to 30 images per food, and there was 42 food classes. By the way, somebody asked a question yesterday, well, do I have to know there's tens of thousands of foods, okay? But here's something we can exploit. Again, you use as much contextual information as you can. You, as an adult, probably eat no more than 200 different types of foods, okay? Huh? A day? You don't eat 200 different types. I'm talking about if you look at your expanded diet. There's no more than 200 different types of foods, okay? And that, by the way, again, that's a peer-reviewed study that Carol and her students published based on some metadata analysis. I can point you to where that is. Now, it's true, you probably ate, when you were a teenager, you probably ate a different set of 200 foods than you eat now. And this also doesn't mean you don't fly off to India and have some real spicy Indian food to give some problems. But we can use the fact that most people have a limited diet. They only eat certain types of foods, and many people eat the same thing for breakfast every morning, and then they might eat a very similar lunch and things like that. Okay, so here's our classification accuracy. And what we do is we get two types of results from a classifier. We get the top pick and we get the top 4 picks, okay? And you can see this is a variation of what it is. Some we do better than others. Some were, at 100%. Some were much lower than that. But one of the things you need to know is some of this is somewhat biased in the following sense. If I misidentify, let's say, cake, and I call it lettuce, for example, that's a big hit when we talk about the calories, right? The other thing you'll find out is that when we're doing portion size estimation, if I overestimate how much lettuce you ate, there's not a big impact on the calories. If I overestimate or underestimate how much cake you ate, that's a big impact on the calories. So we're also looking at this contextual information relative to the food type. Now, one of the things we're really interested in is using contextual information, this restricted diet thing. So you can do things like time-based food compensation, food co-occurrence patterns, date, time, place, dietary patterns, even work and sleep. So for instance, if a person, let's say, works at night, maybe they're having breakfast at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. That's their breakfast. And they're having their final meal, their dinner meal, maybe at 6 a.m. So you can also exploit that information of the person's lifestyle and the person's context. We actually call this a personalized learning model, and we're constructing this personalized learning model. So one of the things that we've looked at is co-occurrence. And this has to do with maybe you are unlikely to have your muesli in the morning with a steak. Okay? All right. Well, maybe some of you might do that. Or muesli in the morning with macaroni and cheese. So we can exploit these co-occurrence patterns. We can learn from your diet that helps us identify the food and, to a certain extent, how much the portion size. Okay. So we've done a lot of work on this. Again, we have a very interesting Bayesian model that we use for the co-occurrence. Again, you can look at our papers. There's some really interesting theoretical analysis we've done on using this Bayesian model. And we've actually shown that the food co-occurrence, and again, I'm not going to be able to leave this picture here long enough for you to see, the food co-occurrence model actually improves the classification accuracy. Okay, and again, we've done this in our controlled studies. We've also done things we have a recursive model for looking at temporal consumption. In other words, it sort of looks at maybe how, let's say, for example, every morning at breakfast, you drink milk. But maybe you only drink milk. Let's say on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, you drink milk. And on Tuesday, Thursday, for breakfast, you just drink water. That's a very simple type of thing. We can learn that type of context and again put it into this probabilistic model and use that to increase the accuracies. Now again, this was a 358 food study from our free living. By the way, I'm using the term free living. Maybe you don't know what it means. Free living literally means we give you the app, tell you to start taking pictures of your food. We don't tell you what to eat. We don't give you the food. And we, like I said, that's a free living study. We've done a lot of those. We've done controlled studies where we actually give you all your food. Okay, so both of those studies are valid as far as calibrating this. And you can see that, now this is using the first line, the simplest classification system, because we didn't want to confound it with other things. But you can see the use of the context does drive up the classification accuracy. All right? Now, food portion size. Again, this is much more complicated than people realize. So if you think about it, you need three things to do food portion size. The first thing you need would be the food volume. What do you think the next two things you need?
Density.
Well, you know that because I had dinner with you last night. The second thing you need, let's put it this way, is you need a food composition table that says if you ate 5 grams of cake, this is what the nutrient content is. But the problem is volume's not enough. You also need to know what food density is. And most people don't understand food density. Okay? In food density, some food density is available in a composition database that the US government produces and some is not. And I'll tell you one of the things we've done with food density, all right? Now, again, if you work in the computer vision area or image processing area, you may say, oh, you got to take at least 2 images, stereo, or take some video or something like this. Now remember, I'm not designing this applications for gearheads like you. Okay? I'm designing this application for the average person out there and maybe a 4-year-old child to be able to use. So Carol Boucher strongly believes taking more than one picture is too much of a burden. Now, if the phone had a stereo camera, we'd love to have that, or even multiple images. But right now, we are doing portion size estimation, basically 3D depth information from single view. Okay? Now, I've been doing this for a long time. As a matter of fact, he and I are old men in this area. That's an ill-posed inverse problem. Okay? So what do you do when you have an ill-posed inverse problem? You regularize it by using contextual information. So we're going to use contextual information on how do we do the regularization. Okay? Again, emphasize, most important, most 3D information has been lost during the projection process. So we've looked, and actually we published a study using a very fancy 3D scanner for looking at images, and that's a paper we presented at ISIP 2 weeks ago in Phoenix. You can go take a look at that if you want. So we've done this, all right? And again, this is one of my students, Shenglu. She did this also as part of her PhD dissertation in 2014. But we're doing single view portion size estimation. Now, the first piece of contextual information we're assuming is we know the food label, and it's accurate. Now, what you can do then, if you know the food label, let's say you know it's a banana, then you can have, I'm telling you this in a very simple way, but you want to learn more, you got to go to the website and look at the papers. If you think it's a banana, then you can have like a cylindrical type model, and you know the angles and everything like that because we collect them from the camera. You can project that model into the view that we actually seen given the segmentation mask, and then you can estimate the volume. Okay? And so we have basically done that. We've looked at, both, cylindrical box, prism type models. Prism models are good for things like that are not, do not have regular geometric shape. We've done volume-based or area-based projection models. We've done a lot of this stuff, okay? And so, again, we can use this information to be able to get an estimate of what the food volume is, all right? Now, here's an example. There's a bunch of food items, and here is what we said the volume was, and then you can see the error bars. Okay? Now, you may say, well, some of those are kind of bad, right? All right, we showed this, we presented this at a nutrition conference. I did and Carol did. People went nuts because these numbers are better than the numbers that have been published for what you can do to estimate what food volume is. And the lady over here who's a nutritionist is shaking her head, the Nestle lady. Is it okay if I refer to you as the Nestle lady?
Just call me Allison.
Okay, Allison. Okay. So, and this also goes back to the point is, if I overestimate how much lettuce you've eaten, it's not a big deal. But if I overestimate how much chocolate cake you has eaten, that is a big deal. We're all impinging your diet. So we have to worry about that, okay? Again, you have to be very careful. And again, I was worried about these because some of these things have large numbers, but this is the best that anybody's reported, at least what we can tell up to this point. Okay, now let's talk about, now you got the volume. Now what you want to do is you want to compute the calories. First you need a food composition database. The one we use is something called the FNDDS. It's actually produced by the US Department of Agriculture. It contains 6,500 foods and beverages, an additional almost 10,000 foods and beverages. It's free, you can go get it. Okay, it's a database. It comes down as a Microsoft, yeah, something like that, yeah. So you can use this. We've been using FNDDS as part of our system. But the problem is, this is not enough. You need to know food density, okay? Food density is basically tells you how many grams per centimeter or cubic centimeter of food there is. It's sort of weight divided by volume. And the problem is some of these foods are very porous. Now, it turns out there is some density information in the FNDDS, but there's not enough. So what have we been doing? Like good engineers, you know what we've been doing? We've took 200 foods, and we're doing more, and we've put them in an MRI system. And we've imaged them and determined what their true volumes are. In other words, we looked at the porosity. Okay? Again, this is not well understood. Every time I try to explain this to a computer vision or image processing guy, they don't get it, okay? But if you don't have this information, you can't do the next step. The next step is, again, what you want to do is you want to go from volume to calories. To go from volume to calories, you better have this density information, you need a food composition database. I don't know. Allison, is there one here for Switzerland? Is there a food composition database that's used in, there is? Okay. I don't know. I mean, I know there's one in Australia because we use it for Australian studies, but is it similar to the FNDDS? It doesn't have as many foods? Okay. And the FNDD, so this is FNDDS, there's a new one coming out. Carol told me there's a new one coming out, so yeah. So we're using, I'm going to lie to you now because I'm not sure. We're using what's the current one? Is it an FNDDS 4? Is that the current one? I think we're using 3, but we've augmented it a lot. As a matter of fact, we're thinking about releasing our version of FNDDS. Okay. Here's some actual, again, these are some test sites. In other words, we've got to do the test ones first. And so what we did is this tells you the energy, the ground truth information. And again, this was one of the first studies that actually published, the full end blown, portion size estimation and calculate the nutrients. What we really did on this one was not nutrients, was energy. Okay, because Carol was interested in energy. But if you do energy, you can get the nutrients out of the FNDDS if you have, you have the portion size right. And these were sample images, and we've also done this in a lot of other studies. Okay. The other thing we have is our system has a complete integrated back-end data system. It's based on, again, for the engineers and computer science people, back-end system is Postgres, which is a very heavy-duty production quality database system. It's open source, it's free, it's SQL compliant. And what it allows us to do is we refer to them as 3 separate integrated database. There's something called the I2DA database that basically indexes all the images, okay? There's something called the TFNDDS, which is our modified version of the FNDDS. That stands for TDA FNDDS. And then there's the eTDA system, which collects other information about the participants. This then has a really nice web interface, so both users could go in and look at their information they collect. They can even do, we're implementing where you could do something like social network sharing, where Ramesh could say he wants to share his food images with me, and I say I don't want to share my food. And actually, we allow that. We allow that. You can share your images with me, but I won't share my images with you. We can do that. And it has a really nice user interface. Again, everything's secure. And the other thing I should point out to you, again, at least for the people from the US, all of these studies have gotten IRB human use approval, okay? So we're very careful about how we collect the data and the privacy of our people. Okay, so the Dada system has been tested and validated, more than 900 users. I want to emphasize again, it's been validated by being published in the peer-reviewed nutrition literature, not just at, CVPR or ICIP or one of the, image processing computer vision journals. We have a new project we're working on. We call it the Viper FoodNet database. It's going to have 400,000 images. And these are going to be net verified by crowdsourcing. This is an ongoing project. We intend to release that data set. Now, people always ask me, well, can I have your data up here? And the answer is most of the time, no. I can give you a subset of it, but not everything we collect because of the IRB issues, okay? And I'm not violating those rules. Okay, so we actually are preparing, it's going to be small initially, at 25,000 set images we're going to release to the general public, but it's not going to have all of our metadata, okay? I should also point out to you, again, for the people that do computer vision image processing, of those 70,000 images, about 25% of them have been double read, ground truth, where then a nutritionist comes back and looks at it and also agrees with us on the food labeling. And that's an ongoing project. As a matter of fact, I got some emails last night of another 150 images that were ground truth and added to our ground truth set. Okay, we're looking now at a deep learning approach. We have a sort of a unique deep learning architecture we've been looking at. We're going to do a submission, again, for the image processing people in the crowd to CVPR on this. Okay, so I think that's it. I want to emphasize again, oh, by the way, if you go out and look, the thing's not available in any of the app stores or anything like that. If you want to participate or anything, use this, you can contact me. We maybe can work something out. We also have 4 patents on this stuff. We're actually thinking about forming a company and sort of moving forward with that. But we're not, okay. So one person said to me, is it ever going to be free? And my answer is no, okay? Because I got too much work in it, okay? So it's never going to be free, although for researchers who want to do some collaborative work with us, we have lots of people who have used it. So we have studies that have been used, several places in the US, several places in Australia, a couple studies in Europe, and one study going to start in Asia. We've already had another study in Asia, and we've also been talking to some people in South America. So, and right now, you say, okay, can I do a demo like we saw yesterday? The answer is no, because the whole system is down for 1 month because we're adding all the deep learning stuff into the backend server, and so we're doing that, and it takes some time. That's it. I'd be more than happy to answer any questions.